I'm Vicki Rogers. Welcome back to the Senior Living Show. With me, I have a special guest, Scott Neal. He is the president of D. Scott Neal Incorporated, and he is the founder of the Caregiver Circle. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Vicki.
Yeah, tell everybody a little bit about your background, Scott.
Well, I have two degrees, two master's degrees. One is in accounting, an MBA in accounting, and the other one is a Master of Divinity in Pastoral Care. And so I have a great interest in helping people to plan for the rest of their lives, no matter when we start. But in this case, we're starting at senior level, at elderhood.
Yes, and so you have a passion for seniors, and you've got, there's a mindset in America that you're trying to help shift. Tell us about that, Scott.
Well, I think you'd probably agree with me. I think most people would probably agree with me that the mindset is traditionally that of a period of decline, a period of loss, a period of increased debilitation, and that's widespread. And I've come to believe that it's more of a period of growth and development around, it can become a much larger experience than simply a period of decline. For example, I think one of the chief growth areas for elders is to resolve the conflict between letting go of a legacy while still trying to hold on to as much control as possible for as long as possible.
And how can they achieve that?
Well, it's a matter of communication. It's a matter of dealing with all of the issues that come at you, such as health care, such as financing, such as housing arrangements, living arrangements, just taking care of the family. But leaving the legacy is mostly about stories. It's mostly about leaving the stories behind that how I want to be remembered.
And navigating these issues seems to be quite emotional, right?
Oh, absolutely. And typically what we find is an adult child taking care of an aging parent, and there are tremendous communication difficulties in that. And we could go on for a long time talking about the communication difficulties between adult children and their parents.
Well, so what are some of the first steps that folks should take when they think they're ready to have these kinds of conversations?
Well, I like to rely upon a book called The Other Talk. Most people can remember the first talk that they had with their child. That was a talk about sex. The other talk is the talk now about how I want to live the rest of my life. In fact, I was sitting reading that book one day with my son walked in. He was about 12 years old. He walked into the room and he said, "Daddy, what you reading?" And I said, it's a boomer's guide to talking with your family about the rest of your life. He said, "I'm out of here."
Nobody wants to talk about it.
Yeah. So it's beginning that talk, having that conversation, and we're going to be talking about that.
And how do you open the door to even start that conversation with
Well,
them?
it's always better if the senior starts the conversation. Mm-hmm. It's very, very difficult for an adult child to begin that conversation with their parents.
So if the senior doesn't, if the adult child needs to, do you have any advice about that?
You look for openings. You seize the day. You step up when they need something. You step up, and that's generally your opening, is when you perceive that they need something.
All right. As an adult in this age group, adults that are 40s, 50s, and 60-year-olds, there are 3 different ways that you say that we view our parents. Explain that to us.
Well, we really start with 2 ways. One way is we could see them as they are, as people. The other way is that we could see them as objects. And the way that we see them as objects is that, an example. I was quite sure at times that I was going to tend to my mother, giving her care, because I wanted to be perceived as the good son. Mm-hmm. And when I was perceived as the good son, I was accomplishing my goal and objective, and she merely became the vehicle for me to do that. I was seeing her as an object when that happened. Yeah. And then there are other times when I would see her as an obstacle. Oh. She prevented me from going to see my son's soccer game, or she became, at times, dare I say, she became a burden. And so when I saw her in that way, she was an object. She was not a person. But when I began to see her as a person, our relationship began to change for the very positive, in a very positive way. It began to change and develop in ways that we had never, ever experienced before. And that's become my mission, is to help adult children and their aging parent transform their relationship with each other.
And the first step?
Well, the first step is to realize that you might be doing these things.
Yeah, yeah.
It was just a point of recognition that I could recognize that I was actually seeing my mother as an object and not as a person.
And how did you come to that reality?
Well, reading and being called upon it. I have a younger brother, and my younger brother and I were talking one day, and I realized that, I'm after being the number one son.
Yeah.
I was the elder of the two, but and realizing that and talking about it was difficult, especially with him and with my mother. My father had Alzheimer's disease, and my mother was his primary caregiver, and then I became her primary caregiver, and so that's my most recent experience of working with elders.
Yes, well, you can walk the walk, talk the talk, because you've been through it yourself.
I certainly hope so.
Yes.
Yeah, it certainly has enhanced my experience.
Now, what's very fascinating to me is your Caregivers Circle. Please tell us just a little bit about that and where folks can find more information.
Well, caregivercircle.com is a website, and it has some tools on there that I hope people will find helpful. So.
And what's it all about?
It's all about dealing with what I call the predictable predicaments of aging.
All right, yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right, Scott, tell everyone where they can get more information.
Join us at caregivercircle.com. We talk about things like this.
And thank you so much for being with us today. We'll be back in just a little bit here with more on the Senior Living Show.